So you watched Xiangling's basics guide, and now you're wondering how to build her for more like mid to late game. So that is what we're going to do in this video. We are going to look at a mid to late game build on Xiangling, some teams, stuff like that. Now, we are going to refresh on the Xiangling that we are using. We are using mine again. However, I have upgraded her since the basics video. I did what I should have done a long time ago. My Xiangling is now level 70 with 1300 attack, 272 EM, 38 over 187.6 with a 195 energy recharge and a pyro goblet. For weapons, she does have R5 the catch. Yes, I did take stuff off of Raiden to also give her 4-piece emblem. She is C6 and her talents are 277. I didn't say I perfected her. I said I did something that I should have done a long time ago, right? So we are going to look at a couple different teams. Now, I believe that a lot of people should build Xiangling, right? Xiangling is phenomenal. I typically don't use a lot of teams that she would be exceptionally well in. She is a phenomenal pyro character, a phenomenal off-field damage character. And I actually got Tartaglia to run him with Xiangling in the child national team. So that is the first team that we're going to start with in this video. Now, one of the reasons that Xiangling is so good is because her burst has no internal cooldown, right? It is the rate at which a character's attack can apply the element. That is the best, easiest way to describe it. There's a kind of a timer that you don't see going on in the background, and that is how often that element can be applied to the enemies. Xiangling's burst does not have that timer, so we don't have to worry about that. So as you can see, every single time that her burst hits an enemy, it is going to vaporize, allowing Tartaglia to be our on-field hydro applicator, so that way Xiangling can vaporize. Now, one of the reasons why this is so good is because Tartaglia applies a ton of hydro with his skill, and whenever he crits, his burst can hit pretty high damage. Using a team like this, especially with C6 Xiangling, Guoba's going to make the enemies weaker to Pyro, Kazuha's going to make the enemies weaker to Pyro, Benny's also going to give an attack buff to Tartaglia and Xiangling, because Xiangling's burst can also snapshot Benny's burst. Meaning that if we drop Benny's burst first, and then we use Xiangling's burst for the entire duration, even if we leave the circle, that burst will have the attack buff from Benny. That, coupled with her not having an internal cooldown on her burst, is what makes her so good. And as you can see, her doing this level 70 with not super good of a build, just kind of like it gets her by, doing like 38Ks on the Vaporize, right? Which is really good. And even into some 50Ks right there. Actually, I'm watching on the screen right now. We got some 50K bursts, or 50K Vaporizes, which is really good. And she is just a phenomenal off-field pyro character. She can slot into a ton of different teams. Any team that you need off-field pyro application, she can go into this team very well. And we're going to talk about a lot of those teams in a little bit. Obviously, I'm not going to be able to run through every single team that she would work in, because then that would be a 24-hour long video, because I could probably talk that long about the different teams that she's good in. So now let's go look at the individual artifacts and weapon on Xiangling. So of course, we do have Xiangling running 4-piece Emblem of Severed Fates. It is her best artifact set. The 2-piece is going to get up her energy recharge because she is energy hungry. She needs her burst up as much as possible. The 4-piece is going to increase the elemental burst damage based on her ER. So we want to get her a ton of ER, another reason why we're running the catch, which we'll talk more about the catch in a little bit. Now, there are a couple different artifact sets that you can run on Xiangling depending on the team, but all in all, Emblem is her best. So if you are wanting to use Xiangling, if you're wanting to build a very good Xiangling, Emblem is phenomenal. Obviously, if you're running something like Burgeon Xiangling, which would be a very odd team to run, but you could do it because Xiangling gets EM upon Ascension, you would be running a different artifact set, but you would still have to have a lot of ER for her. Now, let's look at the individual artifacts. The Flower, ER, crit damage, crit rate, EM. This is phenomenal. If that EM had been attack percent, in my opinion, that is the perfect artifact substats. For this Plume, crit rate, crit damage, ER, HP percent. Again, if that HP percent had been attack percent, phenomenal. Crit rate, crit damage, ER is really good. Now for Sans, this is an EM Sans. Once we get her to 200 EM for Vaporize, we don't want to go any higher, that's wasted. So instead you could or should be running an ER or an attack sands. You still want to get a ton of ER on her, like 220 or higher. If you can get that without an ER sands, really good, then go with an attack sands. For a goblet, pyro goblet, of course, crit rate, crit damage, all that fun stuff. Then for the circlet, crit damage or crit rate, depending on what you need more of. This does have crit rate in the substats and attack and ER. This is my Raiden's artifacts after all. Now for weapons, R5 the catch. That's it. I'm not going to talk about any other weapons for Xiangling. R5 the catch. It is her best weapon. It gets up your elemental burst damage and the elemental burst crit rate. So Xiangling's crit rate on her burst is actually 50%, not 38. So that is really good to run this weapon with her. It also gets up ER, which is phenomenal. If you just want something else, if you don't want to use the catch on her, Fav. Just go with Favonius, right? Or something like Ballad of the Fjord or Deathmatch. Those can also be good. Real quick, I wanted to retouch on the sands. I wanted to go a little bit deeper into this. We want to have ER if possible. I cannot put ER on my Xiangling and keep this set. If you can do 220 ER and have an attack sands, do that. You should be able to get the 200 EM that you want for Vaporize through substats and her Ascension. Now, we are going to talk about a couple other teams that you can run Xiangling in. And this one, I've done a video like this before. I don't know if I did on YouTube, but I'm going to talk more about some more interesting teams, right? Maybe some newer teams that have come up. And for that, we're going to first start with Navia. Now, if you are not new to this channel, then I benched my Navia after a week of having her. So I'm going to bring her off the bench for this video with Chiori, Xiangling, and Benny. All three of these characters can very much appreciate Benny's burst. One thing that you are going to notice, because I don't have a ton of ER, because I don't have over like 220, 250 ER on Xiangling, I'm going to have to battery her with Benny a little bit. And you're going to see me swapping Benny on, using his skill, swapping to Xiangling to let her absorb that energy. You're going to see that happening a lot. That is what happens if you don't have enough ER on your Xiangling. Now, in this team, having Xiangling's amazing off-field pyro application is going to allow for Navia and Chiori to make crystallized reactions, those crystallized crystals, for Navia to get more damage out of her skill. That is why this is very good. This team is going to drop Navia's personal damage as opposed to running Farina in the Xiangling slot. However, the overall team damage is going to go up, which is very good, and it's going to be much easier to create these crystallized shards off of Navia without having to rely on her burst. Without having to rely on Navia's burst, I should clarify that. Now, this is a very good team. I can't remember if this is what my mod Soup runs. She might run Farina instead of Xiangling in this team. She might actually run Xiangling in this team. But having Xiangling snapshot Benny's burst and then immediately going to Navia, she can still get full use of Bennett's attack buff 2 times with it being used with Benny only dropping his burst once. You can, in fact, get a full Navia stack skill, Xiangling's burst going, and Navia's full stack skill again, all within 1 use of Benny's burst, which is really good. So we have a ton of damage going around on this team. Chiori obviously offering some off-field geo application to create these crystallized reactions that are going to be coming from enemies affected by Xiangling's burst. And like I said, make sure that you're paying attention to how often you're seeing my Bennett swap on, use his skill, and swap off, because Xiangling is not running an ER Sands because she does not have enough ER. She is very energy hungry, so you do need to keep that in mind when you're running Xiangling. So for the next team, we are going to look at running her with a character currently on the banner, and that is Emily in a burning team, with Arlecchino being our on-field damage dealer. Again, this is a team where Emily, Arlecchino, and Xiangling can all appreciate Bennett's attack buff. This is actually a very good team. I actually use Dia instead of Xiangling in this team for the damage mitigation. Also, my Dia is fairly well built and can use her burst every rotation, and she will actually outdamage Xiangling in this current build. With how Xiangling is currently built, my Dia will outdamage her. But that's beside the point. So this can be a very good team. I actually wonder what it would be like having Xiangling instead of Arlecchino. Interesting thought. Anyway, so in this team, we are going to have Xiangling using her burst, Emily applying the burning, applying the dendro, making Emily stronger, and then Arlecchino just being able to also take the field, use her skill, use her normal attacks with Bennett's burst. Again, having the ability to come on and use multiple characters' bursts or multiple characters' damage inflicting methods with one use of Bennett's burst, right? You can bring Bennett on, you can use Bennett's burst, Xiangling's burst, Emily's burst, then go over to Arlecchino and still get some of it for her as well. So this is a very, very interesting team. I do like Emily's playstyle. I do like the burning playstyle. I think that it is niche, but Emily is also fairly strong. And this Emily that I'm using right here is level 80 with a level 70 weapon, not level talents, and 2 of her artifacts are level 0. And she's still able to hit fairly decent damage in this. Decent damage in this. I'm gonna have to try and run it with Dia, Xiangling, and Benny and see how that works. That would be interesting. I will have to try that because that means that Dia will be stronger because Guoba will be making the enemy weaker because she's C6. I'll have to think about trying that. That might be fun. That might be a team worth going for. And maybe I'll actually finish building my Xiangling out. Of course, Raiden has the catch, so I'll have to do something different on Xiangling. Maybe Xiangling will also run the crit rate one. The one that I have on Arlecchino. Deathmatch. Maybe she'll also run Deathmatch. Okay, so now that random tangent is over, so something else that I wanted to look at real quick, kind of more rapid fire, is Xiangling could actually go in a team with Chevy. You could run like a Raiden C6 Sara Xiangling Chevy team. Again, it's going to drop Raiden's overall damage versus having Benny instead of Xiangling, but Xiangling's damage herself might make up for it. She's going to get an attack buff from Chevy, and enemies are going to be weaker to her element because of Chevy. So running a team like that can be very good. You can also run an overbait team, right? With like Raiden, Xingqiu, that's the rational team, right? Raiden, Xingqiu, Xiangling, and then Benny. You could do something like that. You could run a melt team with her, not with Eula, but somebody with like Ayaka, Risley, Ganyu, somebody like that. You could run a melt team to where she is getting melts instead of vaporizes like she was in the Tartaglia. You could also run her with like Nahida and a Virgin team. I think that would actually be a waste for her because she applies way too much pyro to overcome it with pyro or cryo, but it could be an interesting one. You might be able to work it, especially because she gets EM on her Ascension. It could work. But if I were to sit here and talk about every single team that you could slot Xiangling into, this video would be 24 hours long. So I'm going to end it there, and I would love it if you guys were to comment down below your crazy Xiangling teams. That is going to be it for this video. If you have any questions, you should leave it down in the comments. Myself or someone else should answer it. I'll see you in the next one.